Everybody to the American Space Museum. I'm Mark Marquette. We're so glad you're with us today to stay curious. Today, January 12th, 2023, we've got some interesting stories today about the Mir space station that's behind me right there. Look at that gorgeous shuttle docked with it. I believe that's Atlantis, and there's the Mir space station. That's, of course, was the centerpiece of the Russian space program in the 1990s, and most of it's laying in the Indian Ocean right now. But what an interesting program I have together for you. We're going to talk about two Mir missions. We're going to talk about two shuttles launched on this date, one with two future NASA administrators on it. And then we're going to talk about a little experiment that was done on those two Russian missions launched in space where they tried some fertilization experiments with sea urchin sperm. And stay curious about the results of that coming up here. I want to say hello to Marty Winkle, my faithful co-producer the last 2.5 years. Good to have you in the house, Marty. You had some family in here. Did you wow them with your knowledge of our museum and space?
Well, I wowed him, but not with my knowledge, just with some information I know.
Good. We had your sister and your nephews in here, and we've been very busy at the American Space Museum. We're very blessed. We've got STEAM programs going on 3 times a day with 12 kids learning a bunch of STEAM education from Darren Roberts, our STEAM coordinator. We've had good bus tours coming here all week from the villages, and we had about a dozen Episcopal wives of bishops in here the other day. Marty, you gave that tour. Were you nervous that you might slip a cuss word in there? Not you, Marty. I'm just kidding. You would never do that. But how was those tours yesterday, Marty?
It was good. They paid attention, which was always great. Asked several good questions. We had a Space Force or Air Force pilot among those women, and she knew Eileen Collins. I'm not sure if they went. I think they went to school together, actually.
Wow, awesome. Yeah, you never know who's going to walk in our museum here, and maybe it'll be you one day. So if you do, please ask to see Mark or Marty here and check out our studio. By the way, our studio where we're at, those of you that have been here, the window behind my green screen here was cracked last night, and man, I had to use this hammer to do some quick, we had to take it down. It's not repaired yet, but the green screen looks good with the Mir space station and one of our $2 billion orbiters docked to it, something we'll never ever see again, but we want that memory to live strong in your minds as it was an important chapter of our wonderful space shuttle 3 decades that have changed the way we live on Earth today. You better believe it. With 7 astronauts orbiting the Earth continuously, we've had humans in space for 22 years. A lot of it thanks to this Mir space station and what we learned with them and the cooperation with the Russians in space. Though we don't cooperate too much on the ground, we are great partners in space, and that's been an important cog of advancing human technology off this planet. Well, let's get rolling here a little bit, Marty, with our shuttles of the month, Shuttles of January. There's 10 of them. The shuttle month of twos I've talked about before. January is a great month for shuttle space achievements. We had 2 Russian Mir spaceship exchanges of Americans. 2 astronauts flew twice of the 58 people who orbited the Earth in the month of January. That'd be Marcia Ivins and Brent Jett. We'll look at the sky in January and say, I was orbiting the Earth twice. 2 astronauts named Nelson flew together. That's Pinky and Bill. And 2 NASA administrators flew to space. Stay tuned for that. And of course, the 2 shuttle tragedies were launched in January, Columbia and Challenger. And of those 14 great humans who died, 2 flew their first mission in January. El Onizuka was on 51C, a Department of Defense mission right off my shoulder here. And Michael Anderson was on the second Mir docking, STS-69, in 1996. So, also of note is the fact that 4 missions deployed satellites out of the 10. That was the space truck that they were supposed to build our space shuttle as. 2 missions tested spacesuits and ISS tools in the 90s that would be valuable information to build the International Space Station. 2 laboratories were flown, the International Microlaboratory Lab and of course, the Space Hab on Challenger. And 1 Department of Defense mission kicked off 10 DoD missions that definitely humbled the Russians in the 1990s. And we're going to do a program about that one day. So let's look at the first... Marty, I didn't. Our pictures are in the printer there to keep track of things there. If you could graciously get those for us, sir. We're going to see some photographs from the Usiak brothers, Tom and Mark. Hello, guys. Marty, they told me that they're going to be warmer in Lancaster, Pennsylvania this weekend than we're going to be in Florida. All right, that's the first one. That's the bottom one, my friend. Okay. You got 2 over there?
I did got the one, but I'm okay.
Okay, all right. My little cheat sheet here to keep our visuals together there. Yeah, how about that? 50 degrees in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. We're going to have a high of maybe low 60s, but it's going to get down to 30s over the weekend. I know y'all feel sorry for us, but the people around here are when it gets cold, they're dressed like Eskimos, even though it's in the 40s. But it feels colder. Your blood thins out. I've been down here 5 years, and it kind of gets to you a little bit. Let's talk about these 2 shuttles launched on January 12th. The first was the last successful space shuttle launch before Challenger disaster, and the 5th shuttle Mir docking was launched in 1997. The Columbia was launched on this date in 1986. All blasted off Earth on January 12th. There is the tarmac of the astronauts coming into the Space Center ready for their launch. That's the back row's Bill Nelson, our NASA administrator now. He was a U.S. congressman at the time and actually bumped, who'd he bump? Gregory Jarvis from that flight. Bob Senker's beside him. You've got the 5 rookies were on this flight. So the only experienced astronauts were the one there in the middle. I'll get my glasses there. Steve Hawley, that was his second of 5 flights. And then next to Steve is the Franklin Chang Diaz, his first of 7 space flights. And that is Charlie Bolden over there. His first, he was the pilot, his first of 4 space flights. He'd be a commander. And Pinky Nelson is beside him. And that is Hoot Gibson, the second of 5 space flights, the great Commander Hoot Gibson. Those of you who don't know, he's named after not a hoot owl, but he's named after the cowboy star named Hoot back in the 1950s. Hoot would later call this mission the end of innocence for the shuttle program, because in the end of early January, as we look at the night launch, the only night launch of the 10 launched in shuttles in November, and Tom Usiak was there for that at 6:55 a.m. 2 Nelsons and 2 future NASA administrators were up there. Of course, we told you Charlie Bolden and Bill Nelson are the administrators. 5 rookies, all right? So what a night launch that must have been. Here's their crew photo, all signed. This type of, you can buy these in auctions. There's a lot of collectors out there that try to get all crew signed lithographs or photographs of the 135 shuttle launches. Of course, 51L is probably the most cherished of all those. But Marty, you got 7 astronauts there. You go like $25 an astronaut. Okay, so you got $150, $175 there, and then you add $100 for all of them have signed it. So that's a $200 to $300 valuable item out there for those of you interested in collecting. And I can tell that those are, you see how different the ink pens are and the Sharpies. So those are real autographs on there, but you got to beware, because there are forgeries of all that stuff out there. Marty, we got a comment here that you're going to tell us on our UCX family microphone.
Yeah, you may want to use this as a teaser. You're going to talk about this tomorrow. But Robert Lord mentioned that the problem with the SOS-23 in early space station design, they had a space garage to protect shuttle from micrometeors. So you just may want to use that for a teaser.
Good. Yes, thank you. We are going to thank you, Robert Law, up there in Dundee, Scotland, enjoying his Thursday afternoon, evening, actually. Yes, a teaser that we are going to talk tomorrow about current event news, including the Virgin Galactic rocket that was launched right out of Scotland there, I believe, or nearby there. They're involved with it. It didn't make it to space, but we'll talk about that. And we'll talk about the situation at the International Space Station, where Russia's made a decision on how to correct that. You've all most have read about it, where they're going to send up an empty Soyuz in September. So these are going to be some long duration flights up there. And I'll do my homework before tomorrow, Stay Curious, to get you some maybe behind the scenes information about what actually is going on or happened to that crippled Soyuz up there. So a little drama on our International Space Station, and it's playing out now for solutions. So we're going to get on that. So thank you for your comments there, Robert Law. Let's get to this crew. Was in early 1986, the Space Transportation System, that's what STS stands for, Space Transportation System, was deemed such a safe space truck for commercial satellite commerce that Florida Congressman Bill Nelson, now the current NASA administrator, rode along as a government observer with 6 other astronauts. They had 4 launch attempts. Finally, it got off, made it to space, the 24th shuttle flight, deployed satellites, performed experiments, and observed Halley's Comet. That was a big deal going on in 1986, folks. If you live to be 2062, you can see Halley's Comet again. Orbiter Columbia had been upgraded for 18 months before this flight and flew flawlessly. When Columbia landed after a 6-day mission, it was January 18th. 10 days before the fatal Challenger launch. Now, Bill Nelson enjoyed some Florida oranges. Actually, that's a grapefruit up in space that he took up there. Made a big deal about it. Made sure that he was a good congressman promoting his home state. But they got delayed landing at Kennedy Space Center as planned and were waved off for a full day and had to land at Edwards. So when Nelson landed at Edwards Air Force Base, they greeted him with a case of oranges and citrus fruit from California, of course, not Florida, the competition. So, of our astronauts here, Bolden, there's our administrator, and doing a good job. We've got 3 astronauts in the top 3 positions, of course. Pam Melroy's his assistant, a deputy director, they call it, and Bob Cabana is the 3rd assistant in charge there. So they've all done great jobs. And, you know, I always mention this, talking about Bill Nelson. We do have his handprints here in our museum in bronze. He does not consider himself an astronaut. He said he was an astronaut participant. But by golly, he had 8 days in space, or 6 days in space, and went through the rigors of all that, and he's one of 594 humans who've orbited the Earth. Give him credit for not wanting to take the glory of being a true astronaut. But that's how they thought it was. They got their flight suits were just basically coveralls. Their helmets were like go-kart helmets, something not even NASCAR drivers wouldn't wear, I'm sure. So they didn't bump their head around. And that all changed 10 days after they landed, when the 25th shuttle, of course, the tragedy involving the mishap 70 seconds into launch, and our space truck Vision was gone. And you know what, Marty? After the 135th flight of the shuttle, 30 years later, the Congressional Investigation Board, with astronauts and scientists and other on board, still deemed that the shuttle was an experimental spacecraft, even after 135 launches. There were so many, not unknowns, but it was just still unreliable for what it was envisioned to be 50 years ago in 1972, when Congress approved the money for it. Well, there's Charlie Bolden. He is sitting there in the commander's seat. He commanded a couple shuttle flights, and I'd love to meet Charlie. He was a good NASA administrator under the Obama administration for 8 years. And I think he's rocking a beard now when I've seen new pictures of him, Marty. But boy, if he'd ever talk out there at the visitors complex, we'll promote that. We'd love to hear him talk out there. Well, let's move on to the second launch on January 12th. And this one's 1997. Again, the UCX brothers were there on site to get their Hasselblad cameras out for the night launch. That was the second night launch. Sorry, 2 night launches of the 10. I stepped on my tongue there on that one. And there's the streak shot that photographers love to do. They have this is a long exposure, kind of some technical challenges some ways. It took me a while to get it down. But this is a crew patch, and it had some interesting astronauts on it, like the all-star crew of 61C was quite a group of seasoned flyers at the end of the program. Same way here. You've got Bakers, the commander, Brett Jetz, the co-pilot, Marcia Ivins had 5 flights. Grunsfeld is known for his EVAs on the Hubble upgrade missions. John Blaha was going up. He was coming back. And Jerry Lininger was going up. After 118 days on the Mir space station, John Blaha was coming back. And Jerry Lininger would be a 3rd American to live there. And let's look at a couple things about that. There's the crew, as the UCX brothers photographed them out on the tarmac. But of course, the pumpkin suits now were in order back then. This is Mike Baker, Grunsfeld, Ivins, Marcia Jet, Lininger, and Wissoff is the other astronaut. The shuttles of our month there exemplify, again, 10 shuttle launches. Columbia was 3 of them. Endeavour was 3 times. Challenger, the one time it counts, of course, is a launch. It never made it to orbit. And Discovery was twice in Atlantis one time. So all 5 orbiters launched in the month of January. And the destination, I'm going backwards there. Wonder what I was doing there. Where am I at, Marty? I got way out of whack there somehow. Don't know how we did that.
I think it's still going backwards.
Am I going backwards?
Yeah, what hit you?
You know what? It looks like we lost some of our pictures, Marty. I've lost half the pictures here.
Really?
Yeah. Well, we've got a faux pas here where, did you go through them all?
Yeah. Yeah, 25 pictures.
Well, we didn't, they're not there. So I don't know if you can try to do some magic, but I guess you can't while we're on the fly here. Well, that kind of kills some of the visuals I had, so we will just go along with this visual here and talk about I don't have any Mir space station pictures. Yeah, that's the first time that's ever happened, folks. So first time for everything.
I don't know if it'll work. You want me to try and re-import them?
Yeah, you can if you want.
Try.
You can't do it live, can you?
I really don't know. We're going to find out.
Okay. Yeah, we'll try and do it, find out. I'm here on live. We're going to talk about the Mir space station, the complex shown behind me here as I go out. You can see the space shuttle was almost as big as it is. In fact, this is about the size of the Chinese Tiangong space station. All right. The orbiter, as I consult my shuttle scroll here to be completely accurate, the orbiter is 122 feet long from tip to nose and 122 feet long. So you see that the space station there is somewhat the Mir space station is as long as it. So going through them there, Marty. Huh. They're not coming back.
Let me go backwards.
No, they're not in there. what STS-81 was doing was they were, as we talked with Hugh Harris yesterday, and of course Hugh went through some of these shuttle missions in January with us also, and we're repeating some of what he said because not everyone watches our show every day. But they took plants up there, wheat, to try to complete a life cycle. Blaha joined the Mir 22 crew of 2 cosmonauts up there. During the 5 days of mated operations, the crews transferred 6,000 pounds of logistics to the Mir and 1,600 pounds of water. And now we talked to Wendy Lawrence, took a trip up to the Mir. She was supposed to stay up there, the David Wolf mission, the last one. She made 2 trips to the Mir. I forget which missions, but she talked about the Mir, and the way she talked about it was very cramped. She said the Russians didn't throw away anything, and they couldn't figure out where stuff was because they didn't have a system together to accurately do everything. There, I froze up there, Marty, but that's okay as you're working through our problem here.
Yeah,
Go to the.
not coming over.
They're not coming over. Okay. Well, we'll check that problem out later then, because I only added. Anyway, we'll work through it there. It'll be a shorter, abbreviated. Stay curious with less visuals today. Maybe less is more. Then the STS 89 was launched. In 89 was launched the 8th shuttle docking on January 22nd, 1998. And that had Terry Wilcutt as the commander. We enjoyed hearing Terry Wilcutt's story at the Visitors Complex. Joe Edwards was the pilot. Bonnie Dunbar, Michael Anderson, James Riley. We've seen James Riley, a good guy. A Russian, Sharapov, and Andy Thomas was going up there to be dropped off. And David Wolf was coming back from his stay on the Mir space station. Actually, yeah, Bonnie Dunbar is the only woman on that. Okay. They took up another experiment with them that had to do with fertilization of eggs in space. That's right. They took sea urchin sperm up to space. All right. And we had the mission patch for it. That's a beautiful thing. We'll have to show it later when we talk about space shuttles in January. We got lots of time to show you this. But the mission patch for the BioRack experiment of sea urchin sperm in space depicts Homer Simpson in sperm form hurtling away from Earth wearing an astronaut helmet. And this particular patch that was made was signed by the creator of The Simpsons, Matt Groening. Now, how'd that happen? Well, the movement of sperm in microgravity was an experiment by a physiologist at the University of Kansas Medical Center, Joe Tash. He is the brother of Max Tash, whose wife's sister is married to Matt Groening, the creator of The Simpsons. So he asked Groening to design the patch for the experiment, and he later agreed, and they got a humorous result out of that. But more importantly, because this is an important element for humans living in space, we have to procreate with our reproductive system. And the conclusion was, after they flew these sea urchin eggs and on both 81 and 89, was that sperm mobility are negatively impacted under low hypergravitational forces significant to spaceflight. All right. Which means there's no difference. The negative impact means that there was no difference in it except maybe floating around wildly before it hits its target, so to speak. So amazing things that you learn about what goes on in our American space program. And in 1996, 98 actually, in 96, we were trying to learn how to procreate in space. So basically, we know we can do it. When we do it, it'll be anybody's guess, I imagine. So, well, okay, let me go through anything else in front of me here. The Mir space station, again, from somebody that was there, Wendy Lawrence, said that it smelled awful. Once you got your nose adjusted to stuff, of course, that was a big deal to go up there and completely kind of open the windows, so to speak. Was the shuttle brought up a lot of fresh air to the Russians, and things that we learned up there was incredible. And I encourage any of you to read some of the good books on the shuttle Mir. One is called Dragonfly, very in depth. You cannot believe the maintenance that these Russian cosmonauts had to do on a daily basis. To me, it would be very frustrating. They developed leaks constantly behind panels. They would see that there would be coolant or something leaking behind it. Of course, liquids in space glob together like a ball, and they would have to sop it up and find ways to clean up behind there with towels and suck it out into cans and things like that. So quite an achievement. I think Russia's Mir space station should really go down as one of humanity's great achievements, because they taught the Americans how to build the International Space Station. We definitely benefited from them sharing knowledge with us about things that didn't go right. And as we showed recently this week, the Chinese space station, we'll repeat this tomorrow, is very clean inside. It doesn't have a lot of the wires and all over the place that you see inside our International Space Station, which was designed, let's face it, 20 years ago. And the last module was put up in over 11 years ago by the International Space Station trip by the last shuttles. So we're looking at technology now that's almost 20 years old on the International Space Station. So the new technology by the Chinese Tiangong is very clean. They're using every bit that they can of Bluetooth technology, wireless technology, whatever they call it in China. And it does look, things are cleaned up quite a bit inside there. So this is what we learned. And boy, I had a picture in there to show you the mishmash of everything inside of the Mir space station there. But that'll wait for another day, as we can say that we've enjoyed sharing this little look at the Mir with you there and our wonderful space shuttle. Sorry for the hiccup on our visual images. That's something Marty and I'll dig into after the program here today. And but we'll show you some tomorrow. Like I said, we're going to give you a little news of the day, around the horn, some of the events going on. Of course, Saturday at about 6 o'clock is a big launch by SpaceX of their Falcon Heavy. That's always fun to see. And we hope that you watch it online with our friends out there. And some of our friends watching today, Neil 1030, Tom Celentano, thank you for watching us. Melissa Pope, good that you're on today. Gwen Frisbee Fulton, Cynthia Rossi, probably see you out. I'm going out there tomorrow, Marty. We hadn't talked about it, but tomorrow is Norm Thagard is the astronaut du jour, and we want to go out there and see Norm. He's 80-something years old. Get an autograph from him. Steve Hammer's watching. Ophelia Sauterelle in France. William Whiting. I bet he's packing his bags, Marty. Come down here to see us. William, let us know. And Carlton Bailey's watching, of course. Thank you, buddy, for supporting Stay Curious. Ben Husett, Bruno Lacondon, and Doug Forrest is watching. Larry Pusker, we're glad that you're tuning in today. Doug Forrest, thank you, you pencil artist, you out there in Los Angeles. And Mark Usiak should be working, but he is watching Stay Curious and pretending he's working. We appreciate that, brother. So talk to your big brother Tom today, too. So we will be looking forward to seeing you guys down here for Shuttle Fest, April 15th at the Hyatt Place Hotel. We're going to be giving you all the information about that as the month goes on. So, Marty, thank you for a good Streamlabs job there. It's not your fault that those images can't load up. We'll check it out together here and figure what that snafu was. But thank you for watching us today. Thank you for supporting our American Space Museum. If you're looking for a tax deduction to a charity, go to our website. There's a donation tab right up at the top. We'll take your money, send you the proper documents so that you can tell Uncle Sam you supported the best little space museum in the world here in downtown Titusville, Florida. Where I sit is just 9 miles from where they're going to launch that massive Falcon Heavy on Saturday afternoon. I can't wait for that. So until tomorrow, when we're going to bring you some news of round the horn, so to speak, I'm Mark Marquette saying we can't wait to see you in our museum soon to bridge the space between us.